Hello there, my name is Ajit Zadgaonkar. I'm a worldwide tech leader at AWS. I focus on enterprise modernization, modern architecture, and modernizing the large technology portfolio. In my role, I travel across the globe. I have opportunity to meet with global leaders who are constantly thinking about how should they be thinking about revamping their technology portfolio. And one of the questions that comes up very often is while they're doing it, what are the ways they can reduce the risk? While they want to do it, but reducing risk is an important part. And that's a question that comes up every now and then. So, in today's session, I plan to discuss five important risks that we can address comparatively much easier. So, let's just dive into. Here's a Here is a recent snapshot of what customers tell us. Customers across different industry, different segments, they all benefit from going to cloud. And many of them, they talk about the cost saving, but cost is not the only thing that customers benefit from. They get the speed, they get the agility, and modernization is a play that's there for the long-term sustained benefits. When we look at two different paradigms, one is migration and modernization. I don't necessarily look at them as two different paradigms. Those are important parts of modernization. Migration is the first and most important step to get into the platform and start benefiting from AWS as soon as you can. And then modernization is re-architecting, it's innovating, it's optimizing, and you're doing all of those for gaining sustained benefit for the business value. Irrespective of whether you're doing migration or modernization, I hope you're considering both. The important thing to note are there are important benefits that you can get. And these benefits are realized when you are executing well. So important thing is executing well. And the important aspect while we are executing well is also making sure that we are addressing the risk. So let's look at how we can address the risk and impact your organization on a positive side. So uh, the the important aspect, like we mentioned, is modernization and migration. When I talk to leaders, they always talk about challenges and risks and impact. Some of these that you see, they come up very often. Business leaders are always thinking about how do I drive the business value? Are there inefficiencies that are driving my business down, or they are draining the resources? Then there are issues like unoptimized ROI. Then there are increased cost of doing business. On the other side, technical leaders on technology side, they're constantly thinking about: Am I speeding too much? Am I speeding to last, or am I speeding to crash? How do I scale and how do I reliably do my business? How do we continuously do a rapid response system in place? Coming together, when it's not done well, we see common observed impact, and those are outages, reduced performance, or business continuity gets impacted. Many a times, you also see that the decisions are stale because the decision systems are not providing the real-time data, stress teams, or even at times the increased cost of doing business. So, uh, now the question comes, what are the ways we can identify the risk? I think of it in abstract terms, where you can start asking questions. Some of the simple questions like, are there things that will break my applications? Are there things that will break the business continuity? Are there things that will uh, that will that are most often changed? Those are the things that there are things, if they're delayed, will they cause a business impact in terms of budget, resources, and timelines? Are there concerns when you're carrying on these initiatives? Are you giving additional access that you didn't think about? Are you adding more surface to the threat detection? Sorry, to the threat portfolio. So those are the type of things that you can start asking questions, and that will get you to a right place to start thinking about how do you do the risk identification. But as I said, I'm going to talk about the five important ones. Let me jump onto them straight up front, and then we can discuss others as well. So, number one that comes up in my discussions with leaders is always that if we are carrying on the migration and modernization, I'm worried that it's getting a little bit running a little bit longer, and I'm going to end up paying for more, not only for the the expenses of running two platforms, but also my teams are in two boats. And that can happen, generally speaking, a lot of times. I've seen that. I've personally faced the same problem. There are two important things that comes in my mind when those things happen that we should watch out for. And these two reasons, one is incorrect prioritization and categorization of your workloads that you want to modernize or migrate first. And second is settling for the works, meaning you're really you're constantly working on new things, but you're not cleaning after. So uh, I want to talk about how to de-risk those. The most important thing that comes in my mind is really understanding your landscape. One is understand the details of your workflow and the current environment. Understand what's involved, what are the use cases, what are the technology in there. Discover and organize your data well, so you know how it's is it application, is it infrastructure, is it performance, different attributes of those. And then accordingly, once you have the data, understand, does it need to be migrated or does it need to be retired? There are many applications they may have in an enterprise landscape. There are many applications they may have been there for, but no one is using them. Or maybe there is a better alternative that you can retire and maybe you can go to marketplace. And AWS has a marketplace that's pretty rich, and there are lots of partners who have put in their applications. Maybe you can replace that, so you don't have to be in the business of hosting, managing, and keeping updating the applications if you can. Maybe there is other set of applications that are recently designed and they are perfectly go to run on the cloud, and they are the perfect candidate for rehost. On the other side, refactoring, maybe there is application that you can tinker a little bit, you can refactor, change the properties, small lines of code, and you're good to go and start benefiting from cloud. And then there comes the whole re-architecture as well. But once you know, then you know you're categorizing your applications and you're prioritizing them the right way. There is no reason you should be re-architecting an application that is good to go as is. So that's number one. Number two is when you're doing that, make sure uh, the one of the other aspect of de-risking is making sure that we clean up after ourselves. So once you have migrated, then remove the old ones and shut them down, so you are not incurring the expenses of those, or you are not running the CPU cycles being wasted there. So that's the second part. So let me recap. One is understanding your landscape, making sure you're focusing on the right things and choosing the right pathway for them. And second is, as they are being migrated in bits and pieces or all at once, you're cleaning after them, so you're shutting them down. I found myself in situations where I ended up supporting 5 different legacy versions and 3 current versions that we were working on, and that becomes a nightmare to deal with. Second thing that comes up very often is the rest, that is, how do I do it in a way that I don't bring down the house? Many a times we think about all or nothing. In a typical scenario, there comes as, oh, I have a stack of application, different tiers, and they all need to go at once. You don't have a way to actually test whether it's working fine or not. And when you turn on the traffic or when you take it live to a new environment, everything comes down. So the problem of one component bringing down or no easy mechanism to try out things before, these are the two important risks that always bogs down, always comes up on how do we do it. So a couple easy ways that I want to talk about. And number one is de-risking with layer of indirection. If you are running your application parallelly at 2 places, then we need a layer of indirection so you can route traffic or users between 2 of them, even for your testing, so you can compare your results. So here's a quick way to look at it. Like, let's say if you have a legacy system, introduce a layer of indirection, that way you can test new and legacy side by side. And this is also a way many of the application re-architectures are being carried out. It's also known as strangler pattern. But again, the number one and most important thing is introducing layer of indirection, introducing a layer of control. That way you can go between the new and the old system side by side. And when things work, obviously you will shut down the old system. But the second thing also is thinking in gradual terms. Remember, if you do all at once, there is a risk of everything going down, and there is a risk of not succeeding in any direction. So here is a quick way of considering where, let's say if this was on the left side, you see a typical three-tier architecture. Let's say you wanted to start with moving only proxies or HTTP tier. Let's move it to a new environment. And then you can have them still be connected to the old application tier. And it might be still connected to the old database. What happens next is now you're starting to think, how do I build the data structure, or how do I build my data tier? And there are lots of utilities that we have. There's a data migration utility, and you can check out AWS as a whole lot of data migration programs as well. But you can spin up a database, have it be synced with the old database as you're working on it. And that's the feature of the data migration utilities. The point being, you are creating a parallel database that's being constantly synced and have it be connected. So now your applications are serving through your new HTTP tier. They're still connecting to your application, but now they're connecting to the database eventually. And then you can deploy your application tier if all still looks good. Maybe you want to introduce a caching tier in between, and that will give you the performance boost on the database. You can cache some queries, maybe some responses, and then you can connect your HTTP tier back here. In this place, now you see your systems are still working and connecting both, and you can start to tear down. Now you can tear down the old system, old connections, and then you're good to go. So that's how you would go and de-risk. There are a couple things that we noticed here. One, we went tier by tier. It's also known in many aspects as replatforming. As you saw, you had lots of opportunities to do replatforming. For an example, you could go from old database that you didn't like for licensing or other reasons. You could go and spin up a new database and still uh, have a data sync. Maybe that was a chance where you could go away from your old application servers and you're no more using EJBs or some of those dependencies anymore, and you want to bootstrap a new database, new application tier. You can introduce a caching tier. You can change the proxies that we're using. You can change HTTP tier. So the idea here is not to use the same old thing, but if there is an equivalent or better service available, then using this step-by-step tiered approach, you can change them and you can replace them to go with a better system. Let's look at the let's look at another risk that comes up often, and that is risk of introducing a change. And now in all of those, you are likely going to make a lot of changes. For the sake of simplicity, let's say if you're making change at 3 tier. One is the environment, your infrastructure tier. Second is your applications, and third is the features. Maybe you're part of development team, you're part of feature team, product team. You're constantly running and making new features available for your customers. In all of those, let's see what you can do and how do you reduce the risk of introduction. So let's look at the environment first. And blue-green, as it's known, or AB, many times it's black and green as well. Color doesn't matter. What matters is the analogy behind it. At the environment level, blue-green is a very popular mechanism. And what it does is, let's say if you have this old environment running where requests are coming in from your requests are coming in, and green stack, you see a typical 3-tier architecture, and then you want to deploy a whole new stack. So you build that in parallel, make it ready, and then start diverting traffic there. When everything looking good, you basically remove the old systems, and then it's not needed, then take it out. So that what we saw here is basically you're creating and building a application stack in parallel. Once it's ready, you're diverting traffic to it, or you're taking it to production. If it's working well, fantastic, and then you can remove the old system. That's a typical analogy around the blue-green or whatever the binary flip you do. And it's very popular, so you can have two environments side by side. Now you can advance that journey and you can do something called canary deployment, where it is similar but a little bit gives us more granular control. Here you have the environment there, you build the environment in parallel. Now you're sending a small percentage of traffic. You're sending canaries, you're leading requests, you're some small percentage, so you can do some sampling. If all goes well, you can continue to increase the traffic on it. And when the critical mass is being served from the new, you have an option to remove your old application or old environment. So this is pretty much about canaries, where you have a granular control. You can do sampling. You have much more eyes on the results. You can measure your KPIs, and you are doing gradual, sustained increase based on certain KPIs. And once you're good to go with new, everything is looking good, you can retire your old infrastructure. So that's what we've seen with canary. Now let's look at the application pattern. The same concepts can be applied to the application. Let's say if I want to introduce a new application version, there's an old stack, I create a new application, make sure it's connected to the database, I start routing some small percentage of traffic to the new application, and then if it all looks good, I can basically go ahead and retire my old application. So these are the two very common that we saw, blue green. They can be applied at the application tier, they can be applied at the environment tier, and they are very simple mechanisms. They're among the first few that comes in my mind when you're thinking about de-risking your environment, your applications for ongoing changes. The third is, how do you de-risk when new functionality or code level changes are being introduced? There are three that comes on my list usually that are good mechanisms to de-risk. One is dark launch, and dark launch is very popular among practitioners of CI/CD, where code is constantly going and being deployed, but it's not turned on. The advantage is you can continue to check if the additional code changes or other changes that you may have done has any negative impact. Maybe performance is lowering down, or maybe it's causing some dependency problems. But those can be vetted out through dark launches. The second is feature toggle or feature flags, also known as. In feature flags, what you're doing is you're deploying and now turning on features when you want, or you're turning them off. So basically, you're constantly deploying, but you're turning a feature on or off depending on when you want it. And that gives you granular control. Maybe you want to test something out when the traffic is low, or maybe giving a specific URL or login to certain beta testers, and they are the only ones who are seeing it. So feature toggle is again very popular among front-end practitioners. The third is A/B test. A/B tests have been here for a long time. We all see it on different websites. When you go, you see a different version, someone else see a different version, and it's about the same, where 2 or 3 different versions are out deployed there, and you're testing them in real time. Whichever performs better over time, you gravitate towards that, and you can retire the old ones. So we saw in total, we saw blue-green, we saw canary, and we saw feature level controls. So important thing here is to know that you're constantly thinking about how do I sorry you're constantly thinking about opportunities that you can seek and have a control switch in between, and once that's implemented, you are thinking about how do I granularize my risk, and through granular layered risk mitigation you are better off. So let's look at the next one. Next is this comes up usually in my discussions with the architects, where they are constantly worried about, when we are re-architecting, especially around modernization, are we creating old problems just in new flavors, new dimension? And a classical way that comes across is many enterprises, when they start to think about monoliths are not scaling, they start to think, and this is a typical monolith, a large number of services being delivered from a single system connected to a single database. Many a times we start to break them. And breaking a monolith is the right move. Just how you break it is important. So in this case, moving from one monolith, you simply just created clusters of application servers, but you didn't really address. Maybe this led you to address some of the operational issues. Maybe you were able to scale a little bit better, but didn't really address any problems. Eventually, the old problems will creep back again. Then many times we go and do a different paradigm. We start to say, okay, let me database was a problem. We scaled our application into application clusters, but database became a problem. So we started to create database for each cluster. Now that also becomes a problem eventually. That's not a right pattern as well, because you didn't really address your running application three times or three different places. Again, it's not giving you all the advantages of modern architecture, neither cloud. So what is the right way? The right way to look at it is really separating and isolating. Take opportunity to decouple and reduce the blast radius as much as you can. In this case, one service have an independent service. One service serves a purpose, single purpose service. Then have them their own data store, and this gives you freedom to choose the right tool for the right job. Maybe the service needs real-time updates, and you need a key value type of database, or maybe you just need a caching tier. Other side, maybe the service needs to look at the large relationships, and maybe the graph is the right way to do that. So take opportunity to decouple, understand the purpose of the services, and decouple and distribute in a way that you are constantly reducing the blast radius. If one service goes down, you don't have to suffer all the services. So that's the third. Let's look at the another risk. And this is my favorite. In pursuit of running faster at times, there's a risk of ending up with a ball of mud, as one executive told me. That's his worry, because we are moving fast. We are constantly churning up new services, and we don't know where it's headed. There is a similar. The problems are very common, and I'm sure you have heard about it. One is, oh, we have many of the similar services running in the same environment, and we don't know which one to go to. We don't know which endpoints we should go to, and I don't know which endpoints would give me a visibility into what service I should use. There are interdependencies between the services, and that's not very clear. We have no control on who is using what services. We don't know what service depends on others. And worst is, we don't know which data store to use. Our databases are not in sync for those services. And where you end up is your systems start to scream, no, this is not the right way to do it. Let's think about how to address that situation as well. So here, uh, one way to look at those is really clearly articulating what services you need. How are they going to be used? Are there common services? Are there shared services that entire platform needs to have, that everyone wants to use? So things here that will help you get going. And one of the very popular design practice, domain-driven design. If you want to use it, please use it. But the goal here is to clearly articulating what are the domains that we are serving, what are the context, how do we aggregate those services, how do we define domain boundaries so there is no overlap, and then how do we decouple them so they can still interact with each other. At the same time, they have independent path and they are surviving well, they are growing, and they can independently scale vertically or horizontally. There's also benefit in understanding operational profile. That way you can not only decouple based on only domains, but you should always think about operational aspect, and you can decouple on scaling. The services, when there are so many services, this approach gives you to implement service discovery much better. You can make not only service discovery, but service registry as well. So all of those are pretty standard ways where you can mitigate some of the risks. Important thing when you're thinking about not implementing a ball of mud or trying to get away from it, there are a couple of things that I would like you to remember. One is implement observability. So you know which direction you're heading, and things go wrong, you can easily find them. Whether it's traceability or simple logging, I think you need both, and you should consider implementing observability. Second is consider how you're going to scale and run it in operations. So decouple on scaling factors as well. Third is make sure your services are single purpose, and then you define the boundaries and identify and regulate the communication between services. Uh, Now that we have looked at 5 risks, I want to quickly do a recap of them. Number one we saw is how do you avoid the double bubble. That's by making sure you are focused on the right priorities, and you can use the application portfolio analysis, or you can do your lay of the land analysis, understand which pathways are available for you to quickly make some wins and drive some business values. And second aspect of that was to not leave behind, so cleaning after, so you're not running constantly on two different boats in two different directions, not only spending direct cost and but also organization's energy. Second is we looked at how do we avoid a single thing, taking everything down, right? House of cards, you don't want to take it down. So we looked at two important de-risking mechanism. One was layer of indirection. By introducing those, you can have a control on going back and forth between old and new. And second part that we saw was gradual replatforming. So that way you can replace the parts and components, modules in a layer tiered structure uh, with equivalent or better services. Third was how do we avoid risk of introducing something new, and we looked at mechanisms like blue and green, canary deployments. We looked at feature flags, dark launch, and A/B tests. And these are really very popular, so I highly encourage you to implement those. That way you can more rapidly go and release features, and if things go wrong, you have a mechanism to de-risk those. Then we looked at how do we avoid the old problems surfacing in new dimensions. And that's where pick up the right tool for the right job. Database we saw can become bottleneck, so pick up the right tool and pick up the right architecture to support what you need there for your modernization. And fifth, we just saw a ball of mud, the risk of becoming, we don't know what's going on, your architecture, your services are screaming no, they're failing. Avoid those by using DDD to really define the right architecture. You can implement other practices as well. DDD happens to be my favorite, but really define the boundaries, understand what are the scaling factors, and implement observability. So another thing that comes up when I meet with leaders is how do we at Amazon help our customers do at scale? And we have a program called MAP, and that can help you there. But it encompasses three important steps and phases. One is assess the situation, pretty much where we saw like really understand lay of the land. What are the practices can be done? Doing quick understanding of TCO, discovery, and there are tools that we bring in to help you. Many of the tools are free, you can use them as well. Second is uh, now understanding where the gaps are, building the foundation. And this is to gain momentum and gain experience to operate on a platform. And third is really scaling. So there are lots of resources available for you to check them out. Here are the links that will help you. Do check out workshops and immersion days that can get you off the ground very quickly. And if you're interested in checking out how can you do a large-scale enterprise modernization or migration, check out the migration homepage, and we have lots of more material there. And of course, when you need help, please reach back to us. So thank you for attending the session. Before you go, please rate the session, provide your feedback so we can improve it in future. Thank you.